In the news tonight, people with COVID-19 who refuse to be picked up by authorities could face the law courts. 5 more Barbadians fall to COVID-19 as the death toll climbs to 188. 2 schools to rejoin the local secondary education system. And in sports, New Zealand blindsides England and storms into the T20 World Cup final.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thank you so much for joining us. In our top story tonight, people refusing to be picked up by public health officials can find themselves before the law courts, fined or imprisoned. That's the word tonight from Attorney General Dale Marshall. He was responding to reports on Monday that some 375 people refused to be picked up by the COVID-19 unit.
Our COVID order requires that if the public health official determines that a person either has COVID or may have COVID, then he is entitled to require that person to be put into isolation. An individual who refuses to cooperate when sent for can find themselves facing the court and may be liable to a $50,000 fine or to up to a year imprisonment.
And the Attorney General calls those people who are in home isolation but are walking around frequenting shops and bars irresponsible.
We've also had reports of individuals who are to be in isolation, but who are walking around communities and going in shops and so on. And that is not only irresponsible, it is absolutely unlawful. And where necessary, the harshest response from the law enforcement individuals will be meted out. Delta variant is no respect of persons, and Barbadians must take it seriously.
5 people, 2 women and 3 men are the most recent victims of COVID-19. An 88-year-old woman died on Sunday, November 7th at the Accident and Emergency or A&E Department of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. 3 of the deaths occurred on Tuesday, November 9th. A 60-year-old woman who passed away at the Harrison Point Isolation Facility, an 87-year-old man who died while at the A&E Department, and an 89-year-old man who was at the Queen's College Isolation Facility. Additionally, a man aged 84 lost his fight with COVID-19 today at the Blackman and Gollop Isolation Facility. All of the deceased were Barbadians and unvaccinated. And their deaths bring the total number of people who have succumbed to the virus to 188. Minister of Health and Wellness Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic has extended condolences to their family and friends. And 155 males and 180 females make up the total of 335 people who've been identified as COVID-19 positive yesterday by the Besto Santos Public Health Laboratory. The facility conducted 2,078 tests. Of the new cases, 79 people are under the age of 18 and 256 are under 18 and older. There were 899 people in isolation facilities and 6,413 in home isolation. Health officials may be headed back to the drawing board to review and make changes to the policy governing the establishment of safe zones in Barbados. The news comes after the Health Minister, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, met virtually with medical professionals for hours up to late last night, where they voiced concerns about the new policy. Included in the talks were members of the Barbados Nurses Association, the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, and the Barbados Dental Association. BNA President Valerie Francis Miller says the Safe Zones policy lacks clarity in a number of areas, including the penalty for breaches and the testing policy. According to her, the new policy as it stands also infringes on Employment Rights Act.
We remain vigilant on behalf of the nurses to ensure that what is being done does not mute the voice and contribution of nurses. The BNA, as the representative, for the largest body in the healthcare system, continues to put the spotlight on nursing issues. The Barbados Nurses Association therefore look forward to further deliberations with the Minister of Health and Wellness and his team.
The Queen Elizabeth Hospital is now a Sentinel hospital and will be assisting the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization with data on the COVID-19 virus and strengthening the surveillance of immunizations and vaccination. Dr. Darlene O'Meara-Taylor, who is the advisor on family and community health COVID-19 vaccine rollout, explained the technical programs in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic in Barbados. She was speaking during the handover of equipment from PAHO WHO to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, which will be used to help in the surveillance.
This means that the QEH will seek to generate quality data, timely, complete and consistent, which will be detected, reported and analyzed by trained personnel using the list of events to be monitored that will be provided by WHO, something that cannot be achieved through passive surveillance. The Sentinel Hospital will report to the national level according to the country's established flow of information, and data would be transferred at the regional level based on the country's standards. To this effect, PAHO has been providing technical assistance to the Ministry of Health and Wellness geared at strengthening the surveillance of SAVI and ISC, which is the events supposedly in serious events of immunization. It's going to work on identifying early detection of these cases, analyzing them, and ensure an adequate and rapid response.
Organizations across the length and breadth of Barbados are being called on to help out the country's COVID-19 isolation centers. This call from Secretary of the St. David's Church Men's Fellowship, Leroy Paris. The association is leading by example and today handed over 24 sheet sets to the nearby Blackman and Gollop Isolation Center. Mr. Paris says the men of the church believe it's their bounden duty to help out wherever they can.
In the men's fellowship, we only comprise probably 8 or 10 members. And in the gospel for last week, the gospel said that the person who gives out of their small amount is more blessed than the person who gives from the abundance. And so we in the men's fellowship, in our small way, is making this contribution of 24 sheet sets to the Blackman and Gollop Isolation Center.
Mr. Paris also urged Barbadians to follow the protocols as he expressed a desire to see a drop in COVID-19 cases so facilities like Blackman and Gollop could be returned to their original purpose as schools. Meanwhile, facilities manager Franz Jordan thanked the association for the donation.
I really appreciate this effort. This linen definitely will go towards ensuring that patients can rest comfortably, right, as we try to weather this storm ahead of us. So we want to say again, thank you to all the members of who participated in getting this here done. Thank you very much.
Work to prepare the Alma Parish School in Speightstown, St. Peter for reopening will begin from next week. It's one of 2 secondary schools that government will soon be adding to the local education system. The other is situated at the site of the soon-to-be renamed New Horizons Academy. Education Minister Santia Bradshaw made the disclosure this morning. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
This is what the Alma Parish School here in Speightstown, St. Peter currently looks like, but in the coming weeks it will be looking much different as government begins renovations.
I'm pleased to say that next week, if all goes well, the work on that building will begin, and the expected timeline for the completion is about 4 months, but we will be able to certainly welcome a cohort of students, especially in the early phases of around, I believe, 50 to 90 students in the first instance, with an intention that we will be able to increase capacity when we actually are able to complete phase 2 of the project, which will happen in the next financial year as well.
The Education Minister was speaking after touring the New Horizons Academy, which is set to become the island's newest secondary school. That property is being spruced up, and minor works are soon to be completed.
The work here should be completed within the next few days, from what the contractors indicated. The good thing is that this institution, I think, once it is completed, should be able to house between 50 to 100 students here. It is not going to be a large secondary secondary school, but we have already installed the interim director. Our intention is shortly to have the approval of cabinet for the board of management, since it will now be operating as a secondary school. But in addition to that, to make sure that we have the specialized teachers to be able to also support the staff here to ensure that the students are well catered to as they return to school after this pandemic.
The Amapari School opened in 1995 but was closed back in 2017 due to a declining student population. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Tourism officials are reporting positive news from the just concluded World Travel Market in London. Speaking exclusively to the Morning Report after returning from the event, BTMI Chairman Roseanne Myers said Barbados has impressed industry players, which is setting the island up for one of the best winter tourist seasons in recent memory. According to her, interest in travel to Barbados is at an all-time high.
For the 3 days, we were booked solid. Every major tour operator signed up to come and see Barbados, and they all said the same thing. It's really good to feel some sense of normalcy, to have a face-to-face meeting, and for many of them, it was their first. So we were exceedingly pleased with the response, not only in terms of being able to have a full suite of meetings, but more importantly, the substance.
And despite the curfew and COVID-19 protocols, hotel bookings remain very strong and locked in for December and January.
What we have on the books really suggests that at the level that we're at today, that and persons are in a position where they're seeing more forward bookings and stronger forward bookings, even at a period of time. And remember, Christmas, you cannot cancel last minute without losing your money. So once you get into this part of the year, what you have on the books is what you're likely to deliver, because there's some fairly strict cancellation rules. So I would say we don't want to rest on our laurels in any way, but I think that the bookings have indicated that based on where we are and the protocols that we have, that people seem to be still confident that coming to Barbados is the right thing.
Meanwhile, we hear Virgin Atlantic is adding more direct flights to Barbados for the winter tourist season. News of this development from BTMI Director for the UK, Cheryl Carter. She gave an update while between stops on the Barbados Roadshow in the UK.
One of the reasons why we're here in Scotland is also because on the 5th of December, Virgin Atlantic will inaugurate a direct flight from Edinburgh to Barbados, and that service will operate twice weekly. I think it's difficult for anyone to argue with what the airlines are seeing forecasted. They would not put additional lift in if the demand is not there.
BTMI UK Director has also revealed bookings for Barbados in some cases are already up 50% above what was a stellar 2019 to 2020 winter tourist season.
December and January, and certainly into up to April next year, the pacing is incredibly strong. Many of our operators told us that their forecast bookings in some instances are 20 to 50% higher than 2019, which was a banner year for Barbados globally, and it certainly was a banner year for the United Kingdom and for the United States. So I think based on the feedback we've had to date, we're very optimistic about the season.
A local criminologist is suggesting that inadequate jail times compared to those in the 1980s are leading some ex-inmates to reoffend. Kim Ramsey points to a shift where people who committed violent crimes are repeatedly finding themselves in trouble with the law. She weighed in on the matter during the latest Man Talk panel discussion hosted by the Men's Ministry of the Cave Hill Wesleyan Holiness Church, focusing on jail time. Young offenders is also another worry for the criminologist.
These offenders getting bail, they're committing crimes while they're on bail, etc., etc. Back to the question of why people are recidivating. As I said, they're going back into the same communities. I said that in my opening statement. They're going back into the same communities, the same criminal communities. They're going back into around the same kind of people. A lot of them have not learned anything, and they've not changed their behavior. As Mark said earlier, a lot of them are not interested in changing their behavior. A lot of them mean well, but they've basically become prisonized, which is a prison term, and they have adopted the prison mentality, they're helpless. It's a kind of a learned helplessness, as we say in psychology.
Ms. Ramsey, a senior research officer at the Criminal Justice and Planning Unit, notes the absence of support systems ex-inmates lapse.
There are men that you will see within a week, they're back coming through the gates in prison. In fact, some, not only in Barbados, but internationally, prisoners cheer them on when they come back, because they expect them to come back. And some of them don't last a week, a month. Actually, we found that the majority of persons who recidivated within 6 months to a year of being released from prison. The support systems are not there. The family does not want to see them. They go back to the same communities. They try to get jobs. Nobody wants to see them. The jailbird status, unforgiving society, I can go on and on. So there are many barriers that ex-offenders face that prevent them from successfully reintegrating into society. And the biggest one which I forgot is no job. They don't have the skills, they don't have social skills, they don't have job skills.
The Business Report, brought to you with the compliments of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
The culture within an organization is critical to the accountability of the business. This was the view of Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Ed Clark, as he addressed ICAB's ongoing panel discussion entitled Accountability in a Time of Crisis.
Accountability isn't going to occur overnight if you don't have that accountability culture in an organization or a government sector over a period of time prior to any event. You have to have strong leadership. You have to have mechanisms that we can roll out to our people who are reporting to us, including and for us who are reporting to shareholders, etc. You have to be open in your communication. We believe that you have to have a very strong governance model in business and in government. And certainly this is something we'd like to see improve in the government sector.
The discussion marked Accountants Week 2021, and Mr. Clark said accountability must be bolstered by training right throughout an organization.
Boards of directors training, ensure that the directors of our companies are responsible for what they do and are held accountable for their roles as directors. Similarly, the management team that reports to the directors, we have to be held accountable for our actions. We carry out the policies of the companies we work for, but we are responsible to that board, and we have to be held accountable by that board for any actions that we take. So I think it has to stem from an underlying culture in an organization. You have to be open, you have to be fair, you have to be honest, and you have to be seen to be trustworthy by the people you are working with and the people you are reporting to and the clients that you are serving.
The Barbados National Standards Institution is promoting quality consciousness and the continuous improvement of standards as part of its vision for 2021 and beyond. And according to Deputy Director Hayden Rind, building out a country's national quality infrastructure is a critical enabler for social progress and economic development.
The development of a country's NQI, as you've heard, is critical. The BNSI is one of the main drivers of NQI, which is a critical enabler for social progress, economic development, participation in international trade, and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So setting up an effective and efficient NQI system is one of the most constructive steps that a developing nation can implement on the path towards establishing a thriving economy.
We head back over to the sports studio for the second half in sports now. Damien, over to you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Well, assistant coach of the West Indies women team, Robert Samuels, says the squad will still have to be at their best despite being labelled the favourites for their group at the upcoming ICC Women's Cricket World Cup qualifier in Zimbabwe. Papua New Guinea have withdrawn from the qualifiers after multiple positive COVID test results among players and staff, leaving only 4 teams to battle in Group A. The West Indies are down to play PNG on the tournament's opening day that's set for November 21st. The qualifier will determine the final 3 entrants for the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup 2022 to be held in New Zealand from March 4th to April 3rd, joining the 5 teams who have already qualified through the ICC Women's Championship: Australia, England, India, South Africa, and hosts New Zealand. And the remaining teams in Group Stage A, along with the Windies, include Sri Lanka, the Netherlands, and Ireland.
Remember, West Indies in this zone will be favorites. So if a team like Papua New Guinea is out, then you'd say going up against West Indies, that team would not have been winning. So once a team drops out and it is lesser than your team, it will be impactful because you would want those points, and you say, no, you're missing out on those points. And the more games you play, the better it is for you to qualify. So less games means that you have to go out there and be on your A game every single time. You cannot afford any mistakes, because mistakes will cost you dearly in the end when it's a shorter version or a shorter tournament.
Meantime, tomorrow the Windies women will be aiming to secure a series-deciding victory over Pakistan women in the second ODI in Karachi. The Windies won the first game of the 3-match series on Monday by 45 runs. Samuels wants his players to focus on consistency.
We are trying to eliminate complacency. We are also trying to better our performance or score out the same amount of runs. We are looking to score 250 plus. We are looking for centuries from our top batters. We are looking for top-class performances. We have had 3 centuries so far this season. We are looking for more. We are looking for more performances like a Haley Matthews. Congratulations to DeAndre Dottin scoring her highest international runs. But we are looking for more performance like a Haley Matthews with bat and with ball. So we are looking for everything the same, similar, or better.
And before we go, just a reminder to stay with Channel 8 for episode 3 of Sir David Simmons, His Life in Focus, and that is right after this newscast. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.